Hello and welcome to my digital literacy reflection. I chose the idea of still growing and the tree as my theme for this presentation because the institute, I should say, was an experience to learn and grow, and I'm going to continue to do that in my teaching career. And I'm still learning and exploring all the numerous tools I learned about. And so I was so inspired, I decided to learn how to use Prezi. So welcome to my first Prezi. So I came into the Institute with a lot of knowledge about online reading comprehension from Dr. Okoro's class. So this includes questioning, locating, evaluating, synthesizing, and communicating. And this has now been broadened to include the idea of inquiry as the starting point of this whole cycle in online reading comprehension. And in addition, I really broadened the idea of communication and that students really are authors of the information they find and they create and recycle it in new ways. In addition, blended learning was also a topic of interest throughout the Institute. I took it to mean seamlessly incorporating technology into the classroom, and I now know this is true and can be achieved in the classroom with the variety of tools and knowledge base that I've learned this week. Finally, curation is the last topic, and as I was doing the readings this week during the Institute, there was this article on curation, and I wasn't really sure what it meant except that it was just collecting information. So after Joyce Valenza's presentation, I now know that it means collecting information, but also sifting through it for a purpose, and then communicating it by creating a new product for others to learn from. So because I came in with a pretty solid definition of digital literacy, it hasn't evolved too much. But my new definition is that digital literacy is now the ability to use technology to gain information through multiple media outlets and then communicate their newfound knowledge in creative ways. So students need to have the skills and strategies to ask questions, to search on the internet, to evaluate their information for credibility and relevance, and synthesize it in a way that others can understand. They also need to know that knowledge can be gained from all types of media. It can be books, it can be images, videos, and it can be communicated any way for any purpose. So the way that my definition has mostly evolved is through this idea of communication. And Dr. Hobbs' presentation and again Joyce Valenza's presentations were critical in showing how students are authors in the digital world, that messages can come from everywhere, and students need to be able to glean the information out of them for their own purpose and then recycle them into their own new source of information. In terms of academic content, I don't necessarily believe the content has changed because of digital literacies, but rather how we access it, especially in subject areas like math and science. So reading and writing using technology is certainly different than in the traditional print form, but online reading is definitely based in print reading strategies. So students need to be taught the special skills to access and communicate what they know and find online. So for example, if a student wanted to know about butterflies, he has many options. He can go outside and observe them, he can read a book or a magazine, or he could go on the internet and access websites, videos, and images related to the topic of butterflies. Many times nowadays, the student will choose the internet, and therefore research is a new topic that must be learned at a younger age, so students know how to gain information from videos, websites, and pictures. So I had a couple of considerations for teaching. The first one is that students need to be taught the skills to access the digital world properly. They're going to need some direct instruction on the basics of accessing the internet, as online reading is very different from print reading skills. So they need to be taught how to question, how to search on the internet, and then communicate their information because it might not be in writing. My second consideration is also that students need time to play with technology to learn how to use it for their own purposes. Just like when you get a new phone and figure out how to use it, students need to be able to understand the programs that you're wanting them to use and figure out how it's really going to work for them. And finally, my last consideration is that technology must be integrated into instruction to suit the lesson's goals. So the TPACK framework talks about how you need to first think about your purpose for learning and also the pedagogy of your lesson, and then you choose the technology that's going to best suit your goal. And this is just really to avoid using technology just for the sake of using technology and really have it as an aspect of learning in the classroom. So in regard to my own teaching, I'm now going to be more mindful of how I incorporate technologies. with all the large variety of technologies and tools available, I'm going to give students more opportunity to use technology to share their knowledge, as to opposed to before it was just to gain knowledge in a more of a research format. So in addition, I'm now going to take opportunities to do mini lessons about important skills, such as the different aspects of research and searching, and also internet safety. So an example of this is many times in elementary school they do themed months, and February is Black History Month, I believe. So instead of having students just read books or me reading books to them, I'll give them the opportunity to have an inquiry process. And instead of just reading, they can research themselves with a partner and then choose what they want to know and what they want to communicate to the rest of the class about Black History Month. So now moving on to the course readings. The first one, I had 2 key insights. The first key insight is that we are so ingrained in the digital world that it's going to take all aspects of the community to bring big changes to developing digital literacies. So in order to properly address how we interact with the digital world and teach proper skills to students, it's going to take work and support from governments, businesses, higher education, libraries, schools, teachers, and families to add their own contributions to make the effort even bigger. So during the Institute, we worked and collaborated with people from all of these institutions to address these issues, and we really were our own community. So now all of us can go back to our own towns and contribute to this effort and bring changes to where we live, and collectively we'll bring big changes. My second insight is that there are positives and negatives to all aspects of the digital world, so we must teach students to be responsible members of that society. Students are already out there, so they need to know the skills to navigate responsibly in the digital world. As stated in the video in this section, with great power comes great responsibility, so students need to know how to use that responsibility and power respectfully. So throughout the Institute, student privacy and digital citizenship was one of the prominent digital literacy definitions, but now I think that it's just a small part of what really makes and defines digital literacy as a whole. The second one was about questioning, and my first key insight is that students need to feel safe to ask questions so they can move into the inquiry exploration, which will then lead to deeper learning. So one of the key aspects of this institute is this idea of inquiry, and our own inquiry projects are a reflection of this. When students inquire and teachers support students' questioning, they're invested in their own learning, and therefore they're motivated and engaged in what they're learning. My second insight is that students need to be taught the skills that create good inquiry. Just like most things, good questioning is not going to come naturally to students. We learn many new things and tools at the Institute, and the work has to be put in to understand them. So our students are going to have the same problem. We need to teach good questioning just as we would teach any other skill, because they're not automatically know what's good and what's bad. So the third section was about instructional strategies, and my first insight was that collaboration of people and resources is a strong tool for empowering students. So as shown through the Castic article and the Valenza articles, students working together and having access to numerous resources achieve more. So by working with others, we can achieve more and become more motivated in what we're doing. So this was shown clearly to me during my own project and working with my own inquiry partner. And that way students can also do the same thing in something they're interested in. My second key insight is that reading in this new multimedia world looks very different than traditional print reading, as there is a whole new social world with which to extend the text to. So as stating in the Reading Remixed article, students and authors are using social media to engage with the text they're reading and connect with each other. So we learned about the power of Twitter during the Institute and its ability to connect people and share ideas. So in addition to this, it's similar to curation, as students are sifting through both the print and digital world to build their knowledge of a particular text and to connect their knowledge to other people's. Finally, in this last section, the key insight is that we must work together to make decisions and actions that put the learner first. So these types of things would include making policy changes, providing funding, and supporting teachers, just to name a few. These things would address all aspects of digital literacies. The panel at the Institute on Friday shows how people from different institutions come together to make changes that allow the learner to access this digital world. In addition, these decisions must address aspects such as access, skills that students are going to need, privacy, and the social and emotional well-being of students. So all of those things I just named are parts of the 12 definitions of digital literacy, and they all come together to really bring the community as a whole contribute to this effort. As a graduate student studying as a reading specialist, much of the readings pertain to ideas seen in my field. This is especially true for me as my area of interest is technology in the classroom. Specifically, I'm interested in iPads and apps and how they influence the learning of print reading strategies. So the Reading Remixed article again helped to show the difference between print and digital texts and the technologies that can engage students with texts such as ebooks, book trailers, and social media. And this is really pertinent information for working with struggling readers, as all reading specialists do. So this also comes in to the literature with different tools and apps to help differentiate instruction, and what works in certain contexts was really important information that's seen in my field. In addition, most of the readings were not necessarily technical, but practice-based, which is really relevant information for me as both a incoming reading specialist and as a hopeful classroom teacher. So, and though some of it was community-based, that's not as relevant right now. It's definitely important to keep in mind in the future. So some of my next steps would be, if I had one more day at the Institute, as I am very interested in iPads and apps, and specifically gaming apps, I would most like to learn more about how these types of apps motivate students to learn and their ability, how they can differentiate instruction. I think this would be a really interesting hot topic session or cool tool session, as I don't recall any gaming apps being discussed. This would be especially useful information for me regarding differentiation from both a reading specialist perspective and a classroom teacher perspective. So in the coming year, as I am just a grad student right now and I only substitute teach, I don't have a true platform to try out these ideas, so I'm going to focus on my preparation for my full-time teaching. So that being said, I would attempt to try some of the tools and ideas I've learned in subbing, but it might not be possible. So instead, I'm going to explore the numerous tools I learned on my own so I can master them and then think of how I can incorporate them into future lessons. So I'm also going to continue to look into the practice-based research in this area, as it's an area of interest for me, digital literacies and technologies. And I've met a number of people during this institute, and the picture on the Wikispace is a great way to go to network for future needs. So hopefully I'll also see some of these people next year as a way to sort of network this learning environment. So this is just some of the articles that I talked about in this presentation specifically. So the Institute has been a wonderful week of exploring tools and ideas and collaborating with others. Although I don't have an immediate place with which to extend all of my new knowledge, I will carry this information further in my career and continue to grow.